Hey, what's up, guys? This is our podcast, The Heart of Virtue, Waiting and Surrendering. I'm here with Miss Hope Van Rensselaer,
Hello.
and we will be talking about patience and humility. Hope, what is your claim about humility?
So my claim is that I think that humility is the most essential virtue for attaining the good life because it grounds us in self-awareness, helping us recognize our limitations, rely on God, and recognize our equality to our neighbors.
It's a pretty solid claim. Why did you choose humility?
I chose the virtue of humility because I think it reminds me that everything good in my life comes from God, not from my own strength or ability. Humility keeps me grounded and helps me remember that I'm not meant to live for my own glory, but for His. It's easy to want recognition or control, but humility teaches me to surrender those desires and trust God's plan instead of my own. Okay, Joe, now what is your virtue?
I chose patience, and here's my claim. Patience is the active choice to endure suffering and delay without bitterness, rooted in humility and hope. It is not passive waiting, but a disciplined posture that resists anger and despair while trusting that good can come in time. Patience is only a virtue when it's used for a good cause, and there cannot be a patience indwelling in abuse. Patience is strength under control, not inaction. The key is knowing when to wait and when to move.
That's pretty good. That's a pretty good claim, Joe. Why did you choose this virtue?
I chose patience because I've learned that it allows people to endure challenges, make wise decisions, and build meaningful relationships. And without it, frustration, being impulsive and thinking short-term can get in the way of long-term happiness and growth. And so patience doesn't guarantee the good life, but without it, reaching one becomes impossible. That's why I chose it.
Huh.
And I also said that patience is a virtue, but when it turns into passivity and avoidance, it can stop you from taking action or making wise decisions. And healthy patience means trusting the right timing while still working what's good and true. Waiting too long, especially when action is required, can lead to missed opportunities, unresolved problems, and complacency.
I think that's a pretty good claim. Do you have any reasoning, though, or evidence to back that up?
Yeah, so in Reading Well by Karen Swallow Prior, on page 193, I got patience is a virtue, not in overlooking wrong, but in refusing to do wrong and overcoming good. But untempered by patience, such an impulse becomes wrath. And how this works towards a good life, this quote means that patience helps guide how we respond to injustice or difficulty. And it doesn't mean ignoring what's wrong. It means choosing to respond rightly rather than letting anger or revenge take over. This idea supports a good life because it shows that goodness involves moral strength and self-control. When patience shapes our actions, we pursue justice and peace without being ruled by wrath, leading to a life marked by integrity, wisdom, and inner harmony.
Yes.
All right, Hope, what's your evidence to back up your claim on humility?
So I think that when I'm humble, I can admit when I'm wrong and I can learn from others and receive God's correction. And it gives me just a more overall willing heart. And from the book On Reading Well by Karen Swallow Prior on page 225, I said that it's an accurate assessment of oneself. And just from that, I took that we need to know our place and we need to know our equality to others and know that no one could ever measure to God's equality. And then another point I had on 223 is that God opposes the proud but shows favor to the humble. So in the end, we will be rewarded for being humble, and we will be separated from God if we live a life of being proud.
That's pretty good. So what does the Bible say about humility?
So I was looking in my Bible, and I found a verse from John 10:17-18, and Jesus says that the reason my Father loves me is that I lay down my life only to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down on my own accord. And this just shows that Jesus chose to give his life. It wasn't forced. It was an act of love and obedience, and it just showed his humility. And I just think that Jesus is the perfect example of humility because he had no pride. And no matter how much he didn't want to go to the cross, he was thinking of you and me, and that just his love overtook his pride. And even though Jesus came down and took on flesh, he still was a perfect man, and he never let pride get in the way of completing what his Father had for him. And so I just think that's really important. And then the Bible also says for us that we should take up discipleship and humility by taking up our cross daily. Luke 9:23 says that whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me. And this doesn't mean physical suffering for most of us. It means dying to our selfish desires and every day choosing God's will over our own. And I just think that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, that is. And I had a question. Can humility coexist with confidence and ambition, do you think?
Yeah, I think that there's confidence in finding your identity in God and, not being too cocky about your confidence. I think that when you know who you are through God's eyes and you find your worth in Him, that, you find, satisfaction through God instead of, having this sense of pride and thinking that you're better than others and just taking it to a new extent to where it's you're being too prideful. So I think that there's a good steady amount of confidence by knowing your worth through God's eyes.
And another question. Can humility be taught, or is it something people naturally develop, do you think?
I think that humility is supposed to be taught. I think that when we're born, we have our own fleshly desires, we have our own fleshly wants, and we just sin naturally. And I think that all these virtues have to be taught just because it takes teaching for our minds to actually recognize wisdom. And I don't think that any of these virtues come naturally, especially humility. Humility takes a lot of diligence and grit to be able to actually take up your cross and just surrender your fleshly desires and surrender being proud, because that's necessarily how we attain the good life, is we surrender our own plans and we just allow God to change our hearts and God to guide our paths. Okay, Joe, what did you take from the Bible away from patience?
Yeah, so in Psalm 37, 7 through 9, I got, "Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for Him. Fret not yourself over the one who prospers in his way, over the man who carries out evil devices. Refrain from anger and forsake wrath. Fret not yourself. It tends only to evil. For the evildoers shall be cut off, but those who wait for the Lord shall inherit the land." And what I got from that is that true peace and fulfillment comes from trusting in God rather than comparing yourself to others or reacting in anger. It reminds us that impatience, envy, and wrath lead to inner turmoil and moral decay, while patience and faith lead to lasting reward. In other words, the good life isn't achieved through rushing, competing, or taking matters into your own hands, but through calm trust, righteousness, and patience in God's timing. And basically what I got from the last sentence of that, "But those who wait for the Lord shall inherit the land." And basically what I got from inherit the land, meaning you will inherit virtues of your own, your character will grow, you will shape as a person through Christ, and by practicing patience you will be rewarded with all these things. That's kind of what I got from that. And another verse that's pretty good is Galatians 6:9. "Let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up." And basically what I said from this, in towards the good life, it isn't about success or comfort, but about continuing to live with integrity and kindness even when it's hard or unnoticed. Those who stay patient and faithful in due season eventually will see the fruit of their efforts, showing that the good life is ultimately built on endurance and not ease. With experience and growing in endurance, enduring comes naturally and will begin to be easier with time based on good habits.
I think that was a really good answer, and I like how you pointed out that we need endurance and it's essential for attaining the good life. A question that I have for you is, how does patience relate to our long-term goals and success?
Well, when I think of success, I don't think it's going to be anything easy. I think of what I want to be in, maybe 5 or 10 years. It's something that I'm not right now. I want to be successful. I want to be, a different person totally. But, you don't just get there naturally. You get there from enduring hardship and, choosing to do good things after many challenges and tribulations. And so I think if you put your faith through completely through Christ and not in the world, you are working to be patient, to endure these things with a good mindset instead of enduring for the wrong things. So I think patience needs to be a daily habit in our lives, because we cannot succeed without Christ?
I think that was a pretty good statement you made, but I just think that humility overall helps you to acquire the other virtues. And yeah, so I think the reason for that is that in the book on page 224, it says that without humility, we cannot cultivate the other virtues. And then a little bit further down the page, it just goes to explain that we are dust, and it just kind of puts us in our place. And the rest of the quote says that dust that the Lord God used to make us as a human being, if we cultivate a lively sense of our origin and nurture a sense of continuity with it, who knows, we may also acquire humility. And it just acknowledges that we all come from dust, and to dust all return. It also says that in the Bible on Ecclesiastes 3:20. And it just explains how the humble person is lowly, and like to become humble, you have to first think of yourself in a low position compared to God, because like when you think that, your pride begins to shrink and your humility begins to grow. And so, yeah, and it just kind of makes us overall grounded to actually submit to God. And when you have a lack of submitting to God, I think that's when laziness comes, and it's really hard to be virtuous when you're lazy and to become a sloth, because you don't like actually put the virtues first in life. And like, well, overall you're supposed to put God first in your life, but I think to do that you have to become virtuous and not lazy.
Okay, yeah, I think that was a pretty good claim, but on page 203 it says, it's from Luke 21:19 actually. It says, "In your patience you shall possess your souls, therefore patience is the greatest of the virtues." So what do you think about that? I mean, the book clearly says it, like, it's the greatest.
Yeah.
And you were saying that through humility, all the other virtues are unobtainable without humility. You know what I mean? So what do you think of that quote?
No, I fully get what you're saying. Like, I agree that patience is really important, especially since the Bible talks about waiting on the Lord and trusting His timing, but I just wouldn't call it the most important virtue. I mean, you have a pretty strong quote there, but the Bible also lifts up humility as a foundation for so many others. Like, without humility, we can't fully submit to God and love others before ourselves, and that's what we're called to do. We're called to love and serve others before ourselves. And without humility, we can't even be patient in the first place. Like, humility keeps us grounded and reminds us that life isn't about our control. And I just think that makes it the greater virtue. But patience is vital, but it just really flows out of humility.
That's powerful. What do you feel about possessing your soul? Like, I mean, like, so what that means in this quote on page 203 is what I got from it. It means to maintain control over your emotions, your thoughts, and your actions in difficult times. So, like, your desires, you know, you're going to want to do something else, but you have to be patient to control yourself. So that's what it means by possessing your soul. So if you don't have patience, you cannot control yourself. And then you're already leading to, like, the excess of virtues, the vice of virtues. So you're kind of setting yourself up for failure. But, like, I don't know. I definitely think humility is a huge one to have. I mean, everyone needs it. But, I mean, when it comes to possessing your own soul, I feel like that's also, you know, somewhat important. But,
Okay. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
You got any questions?
Well, I think I'm also gonna have to say something else to your claim.
Go ahead.
I think that's a really good point. But I just think that without humility, we wouldn't even see our need to grow in patience or anything else. And humility is what makes us teachable and open to what God's doing in us. Philippians 2 even talks about Jesus humbling himself. Even his obedience and patience comes out of that humility. So it does talk about patience in there as well. But I just think that humility is the root of it all. Because yes, Jesus was patient and trusted God's timing, but to do that, he needed to humble himself. And I think that in order to trust God's plan, you have to humble yourself. and take away that pride, because like Jesus really didn't want to do what he had to do, but he did it because because of his humility and because he had that like loyalty to God, I guess.
No.
Yeah, and he took the biggest penalty. He literally drank our cup of suffering so that we could like have a chance at eternal life with him.
For sure.
And I just think that kind of makes it the greatest virtue.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think it was pretty important for Jesus to, take humility by stooping down to our level and suffering for us. But I also feel like he suffered definitely nobly, but he suffered evil for us. And I have this quote from 198. It says, "We cannot, in the name of patience, ask someone to endure abuse, since the cause of such suffering is evil, not noble." And that's basically trying to say, like, it's not good. Patience isn't good if the suffering, like, intent is evil. Mm-hmm. So was Jesus suffering on the cross not good, or do you think it was good?
Well, I think that, like, the overall answer to that is that it was good, because God had created that plan for him. And that was God's will for the world, for Jesus to take on that pain and that suffering for us. And whatever God creates is good. So I think that it was good. Maybe, like, diving a little deeper, like, I see where your question's coming from, like, because the book does claim that, like, asking someone to endure abuse is not noble. And so, like, that kind of confuses me a little bit, because, like, this author is pretty wise, and everything that she talks about virtues is, like, pretty good. So why would she, like, make that claim that asking someone to endure abuse is not noble? Because she is a Christian, and, like, Jesus was the most noble, so I'm actually kind of confused to why she asked that question. But overall, I think that it was good that Jesus suffered on the cross.
Yeah. And, like, I just looked up Genesis 50:20. It says, "You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good." And, yeah, like, he uses, like, man's evil intent, and he turns it into something good. I think that's something we've seen throughout the Bible of Jesus and God's character, like, the whole time. Mm-hmm. I mean, him on the cross definitely was not a good thing.
Yeah.
But he saved us from our sins. He gave us eternal life. He gave us a hope in him, and that's definitely a good thing.
Yeah. I think that was really good, Joe. You made a really good point. But what's like an area of your life in your past that you really had to endure suffering and you really had to practice the virtue of patience?
Well, yeah, that's a very good question. For me, like, last year I went through, like, a lot of rough things, like, with my health. Like, I had 2 surgeries, and, I never really experienced long suffering before, or, like, suffering in general. I never knew how to be long suffering. But through the time of, not having answers, not, like, really getting much information, even much response from God, I kind of just learned to go back to the Word and to not dwell on the fear of, like, what may happen. And my doctor's appointments or my surgeries or just my recovery time in general, not to dwell on those thoughts, but to really dwell on the fact that I still have God, I still have his Word in my hands, and that I need to trust in him and to not be fearful of what may happen. So that was the most recent thing I've gone through, but I think, like, just living patiently is a very important thing to have. If you're rushing through life, if you're not trusting in God, you will not succeed. Mm-hmm. And I think also having humility is, one way you're going to grow closer to God too. And yeah, so what's one way humility helped you, like, throughout your past or shape your character?
So this was very new. Just like a couple months ago in August, I got baptized for the first time, and that was just super, like, freeing. And I felt like the most amount of joy that I could feel, the most amount of, like, peace that I could feel. But, like, after a week after getting baptized, I just started having, like, all these, like, really bad nightmares, like, all these bad, like, night terrors. And it was just, like, it was a real struggle to keep my peace. And
I just started becoming like super like anxious and like, yeah, and it was just a really hard time. Like I felt like there was a full attack on my mind, and just like it was a real battle for my faith. But I think it's because my connection with God was becoming so strong, and like the more I was bearing his fruit, the more the devil was attacking me. And it just made me realize that like once you think you're right with God, and once you think that you're good and like you've done what you need to do to get to heaven, like that's not enough, and it won't be enough. Like it's the full life that you have to live, and it's the full like daily act of completely laying down your life for God and taking up your cross every day. And I think that I had to go through that hard mental struggle to like find that out. And so I think that I've like even more peace knowing that like I'm not above others, and I'm not above others just because like I got baptized, and I think that I'm like really strong in my faith. Like I still can be attacked by the devil, and I still have to lean on God's strength. Like I can never do it on my own strength. And so I think that's how I really gained more humility.
Yeah, solid answer. I love that.
Yeah, and I also just like to end off, I really honestly think that like both patience and humility go hand in hand more than we realize. Like humility helps us surrender to God, and then patience helps us stay steady while we wait on him. And in a way, you kind of need both. Like humility helps you be grounded, and patience keeps you going, like through trials and tribulations. And like maybe instead of picking one, we can honestly agree that both are essential if we want to live life like Jesus and attain the good life.
For sure. I think they both go hand in hand. And I think they both are the two greatest virtues if we had to choose from two.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Anyways, I think that's about it. And great conversation we had. And that's how you attain the good life.
Yeah.
The end.
This episode has been a production of the Capistrano Valley Christian Schools Podcast Network. CVCS is a Christian TK through 12 school in San Juan Capistrano, California. Please visit cvcs.org/podcasts to listen to the variety of shows our students produce on our campus. You can also find all of our shows on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and others. We would also appreciate you subscribing to and leaving a review of this show and the other shows on our network in your podcast player of choice. If you have any questions or would like to reach out to us, please email podcasts@cvcs.org. On behalf of the school, this is Mr. Jasper, the executive producer of the podcast network. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned for more.